News story at this hour. Former Communications Minister Faith Muthambi has hit back at Phumla Williams. She says Williams' testimony has violated the spirit and credibility of the State Capture Commission. Erin Bates is in studio to unpack her emotional response to Phumla Williams. Erin, give us just the highlight of what captures you about this particular statement. There's a lot that Faith Muthambi is saying here.
There is. What's interesting is she starts out sort of respecting and giving due sort of acknowledgement to the state capture inquiry as a responsible citizen and also as a patriotic citizen, she says. She then goes on to really rip to shreds the testimony of Phumla Williams, which of course was widely broadcast yesterday, or the end of it was widely broadcast yesterday, and says that Phumla Williams made it all about herself. Faith Muthambi's alleging that Phumla Williams describing the torture that she endured under apartheid police and using that as an analogy to describe the torture and the recurrence of trauma symptoms as manipulative and as stock standard behavior by Phumla Williams, something Faith Muthambi says she repeatedly saw when Williams was in GCIS. I mean, they're just incredible statements here, Xoli.
I just want to actually lead you to some of the interesting areas I found as well. Muthambi goes on to say, Phumla Williams, it's clear that her hatred of Matambi is psychotic, is almost, quote-unquote, psychotic. This is now Faith Muthambi describing Phumla Williams's hatred of her. What informs this? I think that's what is not coming clear to me about this statement as to why would Phumla Williams hate Faith Muthambi so much?
Well, Faith Muthambi says that this is someone who behaved like this, on her version, when they were at GCIS. And it's no secret there isn't much love lost here between these two people, to put it extremely mildly. I mean, Phumla Williams said yesterday that she's certain, or she can imagine, that when Muthambi learned of her initial letter to resign from GCIS, that she popped open a bottle of champagne. They clearly butted heads in GCIS. On Phumla Williams's version, which we heard under oath at the inquiry, it's because she says that Muthambi perceived her as an obstacle to certain decisions Muthambi wanted to sort of bulldoze through GCIS and through government structures. Muthambi now striking back, calling into question the credibility of Williams's testimony and saying that she's consulting her legal advisors following this. Interestingly, however, she doesn't say she's going to testify at the inquiry, yet at the beginning she states her due respect for the inquiry and its process.
Because that's the next point I want to talk about. If Muthambi is called upon, will she go there? This statement certainly doesn't make that clear.
It doesn't give us clarity, but what we heard from Advocate Hofmeyer yesterday at the end of Williams's testimony is that anyone implicated in the viva voce evidence, so the spoken evidence in contrast with her written statement, because Hofmeyer conceded that Williams had gone beyond the ambit of her written statement, those witnesses now implicated by the spoken testimony would be notified, and it's quite likely that Muthambi may be one of those people. But just going through the statement, Xoli, it's fairly long. It's a full page worth of writing and speaks about her seeking legal advice, also the emotional outbursts, which is how she describes Williams's testimony. I found this particularly interesting, and we must remember these are now the words of Muthambi responding to the testimony of Williams. As is always the case with Ms. Williams, she has once again taken the opportunity to undermine an important institution and make it all about herself. This was the usual all-consuming sense of entitlement, the willful distortion of the facts to paint herself as a victim, casting aspersions on our erstwhile colleagues. And so it goes on, and so the diatribe continues.
Let's just remind the viewers, Erin, about just some of what Phumla Williams had to say yesterday.
Well,
We have a soundbite.
Minister Muthambi had ripped my scars of torture completely. I think when I was writing this letter, the effects of my torture were back. Chairperson, I was no longer sleeping. I had nightmares. I was reliving my situation. My facial twitches were back. I had panic attacks. I saw torture going through my body again. I never thought in this government people can do such things. I was tortured for weeks, and Muthambi did the same thing to my body. And that's why I wrote this letter, as a way of trying to get her to understand what she was doing. One, she was cheating the state, because basically I was being paid because she wanted that procurement at all costs. She wanted to steal at all costs. That removing of all those functions, it was a ploy to remove the finance and procurement away from me. They knew that they have removed me from doing cabinet work. I was going to be a nuisance, and they decided that the procurement and the finances must be removed from this woman. And that's basically what they did. I had to contend with those scars back in my system. I couldn't say to anyone what I was going through. I had to be assisted by colleagues at work, Mr. Simakane and Zukiswa, who made it their problem that every morning they come and check on me. My sister had to move in my house because at that point I was scared of going to bed because I thought the nightmares will come back. I started hearing those kids.
So very emotional testimony there by Phumla Williams. Faith Muthambi contends she made it all about herself. My contention here, Aaron, is that first of all, Faith Muthambi has not left a number for us to call her and say, okay, at least give us your side of the story, saying that you won't commit to going to the commission. All we have is Miss A.F. Muthambi, and that's it. If she doesn't dispute this in that commission, if she doesn't go and challenge Phumla's version of events at that commission, what credibility does Faith Muthambi have?
It's a fair question. I mean, the best thing to do here potentially would be to come forward and give her version before the inquiry, because she has denigrated Williams's testimony, but not only her testimony, Xoli, also her delivery. Faith Muthambi's version of what we just saw is that it's emotional manipulation, that it's purely Williams pulling strings to try and earn some kind of sympathy. And frankly, having sat in that inquiry yesterday, it's difficult to reconcile this version of that testimony and what I saw sitting in the audience at the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. I tell you why. Because when Phumla Williams got to this point in her testimony, firstly, you can see the actual spasms on her face at points, her lips, from the stress of disclosing this. Secondly, the whole room became incredibly still and charged, except for the sound of rapid typing from keyboards of journalists. But everybody's heads almost turned and set themselves to hear her. It was like being in a church and hearing someone testify in a church. It was that charged, a kind of testimony. And so to reconcile what Phumla Williams described, the physical torture, the symptoms of stress that recurred in her body as a consequence of the kind of climate she described at GCIS. Why? Because of the money, because she was perceived on her version as an obstacle to sluicing out the money.
And to thieving.
Thieving, yeah.
Because that's what I think caught everybody by surprise, just how clear and very direct Phumla Williams was. She didn't mince her words. You know, no. Time and again we used to government spokespeople who will always, you know, go about the truth. She was very direct.
She was.
Faith Muthambi wanted to steal. So, if you're being accused of such, why won't you take the opportunity to go and refute what the person is saying about you at the commission? Has she ever responded, for example, to claims that she went and gave the Guptas classified cabinet information. Has she ever? I don't remember her.
I can't say I recall any disclosure on her side regarding that, but certainly a pertinent question. Why not come forward? Why not, if, as you say at the beginning of your statement, as a responsible and patriotic citizen, I welcome any initiative to help expose and root out undue influence on any lever of state, well, there's the perfect grounds to now come forward and participate in this inquiry you so respect. You've shown due respect in your statement before ripping into the testimony of someone who has told ENCA afterward it was very difficult to step forward and speak at this inquiry. So certainly we will be following up. We will see if we can get Minister Matambi on air and get comment from her in person. But this statement is a diatribe against Phumla Williams.
Bates, thank you very much. And Ms. Matambi, if you are hopefully watching, you've left us a blank page here. There's only AS Matambi, there's no number. We'll love to have the opportunity to talk to you, or perhaps you can present yourself at the Commission of Inquiry.